My story, how I came to know Jesus, starts way back, I think, when I was a teenager. I mean, we all know that God created us for a purpose. I kind of felt His calling, like when I was little. Looking back, I realized it now, that He was calling me since I was like a preteen. My uncle, he used to take us to Protestant church. It wasn't every Sunday. Sometimes it was holidays, Christmas, Easter. It wasn't every Sunday. So we didn't really have that relationship with the church or a relationship with Jesus. But I remember he gave me a Bible. It was called The Way. And in the back of the Bible, there was like a place where you would mark out, like once you read a certain passage, you would mark it out. He used to have us read it, but he would never like explain anything to us. We just read it on our own. And so I didn't really understand everything I was reading, but I do remember when I would go through some things at school. Usually it was like relationship with, friends or whatever. I would remember copying how David used to talk in Psalms. I would write in the back of the book where there's empty pages, and I would say stuff like, God help me, stuff like that. So fast forward, I didn't really know the Lord, not like the way I know now, of course. And I met my husband, didn't have the fear of the Lord, so my husband and I, we ended up having our oldest child together before we got married. And my husband, and he said I could share this. I had permission to share this. He had been married like 2 times before, and then I was like the 3rd wife. So we finally got married after 1 year. Our son was 1 year old when we got married. But my husband had like 2 other kids, and I was like 26 when we got married. I was 25 when I had Jose, our eldest. And then I was 26 when we got married. So, but then like his 2 teenage daughters ended up living with us. Like we were newlywed, I'm like only 26. And suddenly we have like teenagers, like 13 and 14 years old, living with us. And, they were really good kids, but, they're teenagers. Like I was young myself. I don't know anything about like raising teenagers. So it was a very, lots of conflict, like early on in our marriage. And I'm kind of going to go back again, like talking about how God, like all of us, now that we know Him, we realize, oh my gosh, He's been calling me all this time. So my cousin, who was in the Air Force, he became born again. He was born again first, and he was stationed in New Mexico. Then my sister, who was also kind of having some problems, like in her early 20s, she knew already my cousin was over there, and then he was all about Jesus, because he was always sharing about Jesus with us. He would call, and I would be like, oh my gosh, here we go, I'm going to hear some preaching. And I'm like, every time he would talk, I'm just like, And I'm like, I know Jesus. I would say, I know Jesus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I say that because looking back, I knew God was preparing everything, like He does with all of us. So my cousin was saved first. Then when my sister moved to New Mexico, she became born again too. And then when I was having all that conflicts with my husband, being a newlywed and having teenagers, and just having some issues in our marriage that we didn't know how to handle, I knew that if I went to New Mexico, probably the same thing would happen to me, like I would meet Jesus. So I remember one day my husband and I, we had an argument, and I just like stormed out of the house. It was like in the afternoon, it was daytime, and I was walking, I walked through the woods or whatever, it was the next neighborhood, And then I sat down on the sidewalk, and I just remember looking up, and it was like this blue sky, but then there were also some white clouds. And like this peace just came over me. I just said to myself, I'm going to go to New Mexico. It's like I already knew, like, if I went to New Mexico, I was going to meet Jesus, because that's what happened with my cousin and then my sister. But yeah, so I said, I'm going to go to New Mexico, because my husband he was in the Army, and he was getting ready to deploy. And I had Jose, who was 2. I was pregnant, about to have my second one, and he was going to get deployed. So there was just a lot of pressure and stress in life, and of course it comes down to your marriage and stuff. So I was just like, I'm going to go to New Mexico. He was getting ready to get deployed, and I was going to see if I liked New Mexico, then I would move there while he was gone, because he was going to be deployed for 1 year. So I was like, I'm going to go to New Mexico, because I was going to go check it out. And also I knew that, like, Jesus was there, like, subconsciously. Like, I think I'm going to have, something when I go to New Mexico. Because the way I was just like, I'm going to go to New Mexico. And so fast forward, I did go to New Mexico. There was still some resistance in me, that pride, that every time my brother-in-law and my sister tried to talk to me about Jesus, I'm like, I know Jesus already. Like, I believe in him. I was like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
But then I guess it was a Sunday, and I'm not sure if it was a Wednesday or a Sunday. But it was during a service that, they had an altar call. And so, sure enough, God touched my heart, and I went up to the front, and I received Jesus as my Lord and Savior. They came and prayed for me, and my sister was watching kids. She was in the Sunday school or nursery, and everybody ran to her. Oh, your sister's at the altar, and she accepted Jesus as her Lord and Savior. So my sister's like, oh, and everybody was just so excited. And that's how it started. That's how I started that relationship with Jesus. And it's amazing how when the Spirit comes upon you, you have more understanding of the Bible. I was like, I just wanted to read the Bible, and it was making more sense than before I accepted Him as Lord and Savior. I was just reading it, and I don't know, like, we know, like, God's ways are higher than our ways. But at that time when I was reading it back then, I didn't have a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
But after I accepted Him, slowly, I was understanding more and more. And I just wanted to read more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I always said that without Jesus, my husband probably would be divorced. Would probably be divorced, because the pressures and not knowing how to take care, like how to resolve issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Resolve arguments. I would say he would probably be divorced. I don't know where I would be. There'd probably be no Angelo, no Emma.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So Jesus saved our marriage. He saved me, and He saved our marriage. Yeah. So that's how I came to know Jesus. And I give Him all the glory.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or just